Hey boys and girls, it's JC here once again with Wax Poetic Pro Wrestling. And today we are going to discuss a very interesting subject. The way I'm going to headline this obviously will be for more purposes of people, I guess a lack of a better term. It will be a little bit of a clickbait on the name here because the headline on this is going to basically read uh, Cody Rhodes will take Triple H's job. Now, before everybody freaks out about that, it's not something I necessarily mean that's going to happen anytime soon. This is just a kind of a pet idea I have been throwing around for, well, really the last year or two since Cody Rhodes signed with WWE. As you all know, he had come from an executive position, more specifically an EVP position at AEW, helping Tony Khan along with Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega, as all four of those men as EVPs, as well as Chris Jericho and a few others, to ultimately start All Elite Wrestling. Cody Rhodes was viewed, I believe, by the fan base as probably the person who was an EVP who had the most business being an EVP. Um, the credentials are there. His father was a booker. His father was behind the scenes. He did have a lot of experience in WWE, under the learning tree of a lot of Hall of Famers and all-time greats. And then, of course, when he got to AEW, he started wearing the suits and was heavily involved on the corporate side as far as promotions and public relations. That was kind of his strong suit. So then he left AEW to come to WWE to obviously finish his story, win the world title, and live up and do something that his father could never do and win the world title. But I do think that there was another motivation here, and if this wasn't evident earlier or early on, I believe as every year passes with Cody in the fold in WWE, this gets more and more evident as time goes on. But I can fully see a scenario. Actually, I almost expect that when Triple H does decide to step away full time from being the CCO, Chief Creative Officer, or head booker. No, that gets another way of putting that. That Cody Rhodes will be the man that will ultimately succeed him at WWE TKO as being the head of creative at WWE, specifically on the main roster. And why do I say that? Well, a lot of the things that I just got done saying is the main reason. He's well-spoken, articulate, professional. He understands the business. He grew up in the business. He understands the new school style. He also understands the old school style, and is very diplomatic as far as his approach to the business and how he relates to other people within the business. This is actually a traits that he does also share with Triple H. But I think the one glaring difference here is specifically with this Vince McMahon scandal, sex trafficking scandal. last weekend at the press conference after the Royal Rumble. They asked Cody first before they asked Triple H about the Vince McMahon situation, and he gave a very eloquent answer, um, befitting of a general manager, booker, chief creative officer. Yeah, obviously, that's something that he learned to do in AEW, being one of the EVPs there. So this isn't really new ground that he's breaking here, um, as far as giving diplomatic answers and things of that nature. But let's be honest here. This isn't something that just any Joe Schmo off the street could do. He actually has the qualities. He actually has the qualifications necessary to take over that job. Whether that be in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Hopefully, it's not that long, because Triple H is already, I believe, 54 years old. So I would maybe think that at tops that maybe he would continue doing this for another 10 to 15 years. I don't see Triple H doing the job past 70. So, with that in mind, Cody Rhodes is between 35 and 40 right now. So, in 15 years, he will be roughly the same age that Triple H is now. When theoretically he would be ready to take over that position if Triple H decides to step away from the business in that time period. And, let's make no mistake about it here. That is something that WWE and TKO, it seems the most likely scenario, because the McMahons are basically out of the picture. Vince is not coming back. I don't see Shane coming back and becoming the booker. He's never been known to be someone that they would consider for that position. And I guess there's rumblings going around that, uh, Stephanie and Triple H's daughter, I forget her name, she's interested in the business and running it on the business end of things. But even if she was like gonna build up to that down the road, I think she's only a teenager at this point. So it would seem like her time would maybe be after whoever succeeds her father next. That would be that maybe her job in 30 years or something like that. But in any event, like I said, Cody Rhodes is, to me, the primary candidate to take Triple H's job, because he has all the qualifications necessary. He understands the business. He's professional, gives professional answers, is diplomatic, gets along with the locker room. And then, he's almost better for them right now, but obviously he wants to finish the story and he's still an active competitor. He doesn't want to be in charge of WWE at this point. But like I said, he gave a stellar answer to the press at the press conference about the Vince McMahon situation. And then in contrast, when Triple H got up there and they asked him the same question, his response was nowhere near as professional as Cody's was, and Cody doesn't even have his job. So I think, like I said before, I was already thinking that he would be the primary person to take the position in the future, but I think that that sentiment is starting to grow amongst the IWC and the wrestling media, especially after Saturday. Triple H's response was very Tony Khan-esque, I would say. It was a similar response that Tony Khan had in a few situations. But I mean, the one glaring difference, I think, was Triple H decided not to, basically said that, well, I didn't read the lawsuit, and we had a great weekend, we had a great week, and everybody should just focus on how great we're doing as a business, as opposed to the stuff going on with Vince McMahon. Even though this is like the biggest story in wrestling, maybe in the last 10 years at the very least. Obviously, it has nothing to do with the actual wrestling. But if you're one of the chief executives of this company, especially the TKO, the new TKO that's a combining of the UFC and WWE, you got to be more specifically on the ball when these types of questions are asked. Now, he didn't necessarily he didn't say anything wrong, and I think that that's the issue, though, is that, well, he didn't say anything wrong, but he also didn't say anything at all. And it, didn't paint him in the best of light here. So, like I said, there's a stark contrast between the two answers, and I think it got the wheels turning in people's minds about, man, Cody could definitely do this job. He's already got the right answers. He's already got the head for it. He's already got the drive. Every qualification you would need to do that job, he has. And low key, obviously, this is another thing that this isn't confirmed, and I'm not going to say that this is true 100% because we don't know. But I would hazard to guess, in my opinion, Cody could be working behind the scenes, getting talent in here already. Almost in secret doing Triple H's job already, or at least maybe at Triple H's behest, he's getting on the phone with a Jade Cargill before she signs with WWE, or texting her because they have a rapport. She trained with him before she came to AEW, or she was involved in the Nightmare Factory. So Jade was very close to Cody. So obviously it's nothing that can be confirmed, but I have a hard time believing that Cody didn't at least have a conversation or share a few text messages at the very least with Jade Cargill. Maybe he wasn't the maybe he was. Maybe that's the difference. Is Cody could have said, "Hey, I know you love it over there, but this is probably where you should be for the best for your development." And maybe she asked him, what's your opinion? Do you think I should stay here, or do you think that I should make the move and go to WWE? And probably, off the record, he'd maybe have to say, well, maybe that is your best move. And I wouldn't put it past him to say that to an MJF if he was pressed, or a Ricky Starks or somebody like that. I'm not coming out here and saying that this is what is happening, but it wouldn't surprise me if one of these talents, if they pressed him to ask him his professional opinion, that he wouldn't give it. And honestly, that is something in that situation that would benefit WWE. So, like I said, to me, low key, I believe, like I said, they're not beholden to a McMahon going forward. They can hire whoever they want, whenever they want. And another thing with this whole scandal is, right now Triple H is doing a great job, and his job is safe. But if for some reason it does come out that he was more involved in that situation, or knew more than people think that he knows, they might just get rid of him too. I mean, it's not inconceivable. It really isn't. And I was just reading something today that, you know, Ari Emanuel, the head of TKO, is the type of person where he doesn't get sentimental on that level. I mean, if he feels that people need to be gotten rid of, to make sure that the business runs smoothly going forward and it has every opportunity to succeed, it doesn't matter. He'll get rid of that person. He got rid of Vince McMahon. Do you think, if he wanted to, you don't think he would just get rid of Triple H on a drop of a hat? I mean, I don't think, I wouldn't see how he wouldn't if he had to. So I mean, it's fully on the table. Um, and then the other thing on this situation too is, let's just say theoretically let's say he does lose his job here in the next year, due to this whole situation. I don't want to see it happen, but it could happen. And if it does, they would need to fill that position sooner rather than later. Well, if Cody is the face of the company and he is the world champion, let's say in a year, they're not going to make him the booker too. I mean, it'd be one thing if we're back in the territory days and he's only booking, a region or something like that. But this is a multi-billion-dollar entity, worldwide entity. That's way too much on his plate to be CCO and also the top guy in the company. So with that in mind, who would be the person that they would hire to take Triple H's position? Well, I can tell you right now, it's not going to be specifically a Vince guy, like a super Vince guy, like let's say like a Bruce Pritchard. I'm guessing that Bruce will be gone sooner than later, just because he is so close to Vince. He's one of the last dominoes, in my opinion, that probably will end up falling because he is so close to Vince. And then, of course, that whole Ronda Rousey tweet about him basically being Vince's avatar when he's not around, that's not going to help his cause either. So with that in mind, the man that would take the position from Triple H, in my opinion, the person with the most qualifications, Mr. Paul Heyman, the wise man. He has been around the industry. He has been on the creative team at WWE. Obviously, he was the head of ECW. He's been around the business since the 80s, and he has moved along some of the best storylines and helped along some of the best characters in the history of the business, specifically in the last 20 years since the demise of ECW. He's basically been doing one-on-one work with WWE's top stars. Your Brock Lesnar's, your Roman Reigns, your CM Punk's, your Ronda Rousey's. These are the people that he's working with, specifically producing the top flight stars, a few top flight stars. But make no mistake about it, I mean, Paul would be the person that would be most qualified to come in and do Triple H's job, or to do that job. And guess what, folks? He's not much older than Triple H. He's only 58. So it's not as if he couldn't do the job for another 10 years or whatever, 10, 15 years, if they needed him to do it tomorrow. He could certainly do that. I mean, man, how poetic would that be if after all this time, 20, 30 years of being the McMahon's competitor and going to work for him, the McMahons, and then getting fired by them and then being brought back, and just all that, and to finally, after all this time, to be the head of the biggest wrestling promotion on the globe, with no McMahon's leering over his head, with full creative control. Man, wow, wouldn't that be something? That would be absolutely something. I mean, I'd be here for it. Paul, um, being in control of WWE with Vince out of the picture, Triple H out of the picture, every McMahon out of the picture, and here's little old Paul from New York City, a kid with a dream, 40 years ago, and now he is head booker at the biggest company in the world. And frankly, he deserves it, and he would do a great job. So, like I said, Triple H's job is not safe with this scandal here, folks. We don't know how far this whole thing reaches, or how involved he was. I don't want to see him lose his job, honestly. I mean, personally, as far as his booking and his creative style, I think he does as good a job as anybody, or could do a good a job as anybody, including Paul Heyman. So I mean, I don't have a problem with Triple H staying, if that's what happens. But man, excited about the prospect of, if somehow Triple H was let go from his position, about who would be taking his place. And like I said, there ain't many people in the world who are qualified to do it. So I can definitely see it being Paul. But yeah, like I said, Cody is the wave of the future, as far as running this company. I saw it right when he signed with WWE. Honestly, that was one of my first thoughts, was they're grooming a replacement. And I think it even more now because of Vince being gone, and they have to have somebody in place, somebody to take that job eventually, somewhere down the road. So, I mean, that's kind of how I see it going. 20 years, we'd be looking at Cody Rhodes running WWE main roster proper. We could be looking at Bryan Danielson running AEW and Ring of Honor, or one or the other, maybe. Maybe by then Tony will have delegated some responsibility. And then the other aspect of this equation, that I've also been kind of hammering home, especially since he's come to WWE, which is Cody's going to need a cohort, a second in command, somebody to run developmental when Shawn Michaels retires. And who better than the now returning CM Punk? Now, this would be perfect, honestly. Cody running a main roster proper, and Punk working with the young talent down in NXT at the Performance Center. Both men, like I said, have a lot of experience and a lot of wealth of knowledge, and that would be a really good 1-2 punch as far as creative goes. If those two were in those positions in the future, I could definitely see that happening. And with the recent news the last couple days that Punk is yet again suffered another injury, a tricep injury, that is going to keep him out of WrestleMania and is going to keep him out for a significant amount of time. I mean, the guy he's my age. He's 46 years old, and he's out there competing with, mostly everybody. Basically everyone's younger than he is. And frankly, his body really is not holding up the best at this point. He's had every time he gets every time he comes back in from an injury, it seems like he's gets injured again and goes out again with another injury. I mean, so at this point, it's like if he could nurse this thing along and maybe go on a 6-month run down the road here and maybe get that WrestleMania match that he's so coveting as far as a main event. Hopefully, you can still do that. But I think the best plan of action for CM Punk as far as his future in this company would maybe be to go down to Florida and be Sean's second in command down there and learn that aspect of WWE and the developmental there, because it's something that he's already interested in, is helping along young talent. And he was basically one of the head of creative for Collision. There was stories that when he was working down in developmental, he was helping with creative, helping Paul produce the television shows. And so it's always been an aspect of the business that CM Punk has been very interested in. So I see that as being, that to me is, if I was looking into a crystal ball into the future of WWE, I see Cody Rhodes being the head booker, CCO for Raw and SmackDown, and CM Punk down in NXT developing the stars of the future, working in tandem, Cody and Punk. And the other thing too, like I said, is these two are also two guys who respect the business. They respect the traditions, they respect the discipline, and all that involved. And they also are young enough and hip enough to where they're not completely closed-minded when it comes to new stuff and innovations and things of that nature. So as far as I'm concerned, WWE already has their blue chip prospects as far as head bookers for the future of the company. And I am almost certain that those are going to be the two men that are going to be running WWE, the biggest company in the world, here in the future. So that's how I see it going, folks. So just keep an eye on those two guys here going forward. And yeah, so Cody is already personality-wise, characteristics-wise, quality-wise, proving himself to be a better leader than Triple H, even at this point. And frankly, well, he's even better than CM Punk, really, if you think about it, because he's walking the walk. Some people accuse Punk of not walking the walk. Cody walks the walk, man. He walks the walk, and everything he says, he backs it up 110%. But yeah, that's the future I see for this company. And like I said, keep an eye out on that here in the near future. Or I shouldn't say the near future, but in the next decade and a half. But as far as the near future goes, keep an eye on Triple H's job status. Because if he's gone, we might just be getting the Paul Heyman era at WWE, where he is the sole creative force going forward. And wouldn't that just be so poetic for us true blue wrestling fans to have Paul Heyman in charge of the biggest company in the world after all that's happened? Anyways, just food for thought. This has been a long form random musing here from Wax Poetic Pro Wrestling. I'm JC. And I'll be back in a couple of days with some other new content, like my Wrestling Observer Awards ballot, which I'm going to go over all my picks for the 2023 Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards. Have a good night. Ciao.